3 years of silence, a husband pleading for his wife's return, and then a rusted tank behind the barn was opened. What they found inside rewrote everything. Little did they know, the truth was buried in plain sight. It was a chilly spring morning in rural Michigan, April 25th, 2021. On the surface, it seemed like any other quiet Sunday. Birds chirped over tilled fields, and the sun stretched across the open plains of Franklin Township. But by midday, an eerie calm settled over the Warner family farm. Dee Ann Warner, a 52-year-old mother of 5 and the head of her own trucking company, was nowhere to be found. She had last been seen late Saturday night, a business call, some paperwork, an argument, then nothing. Her bed was untouched, her phone was on the counter, her keys, purse, and truck were all where she had left them. Her favorite pair of boots were still at the door. And yet, no Dee. Her husband, Dale Warner, told investigators she stormed off after a late-night fight, that she had been emotional, that she probably needed space. But to those who knew her best, something about that story didn't sit right. Dee Ann Warner was a fighter, a devoted mother, a businesswoman. She didn't just walk away from problems, she tackled them. Friends described her as strong-willed, warm, and fiercely loyal. She adored her children, she adored her work, she adored her home. But that home had become a prison. Dee had told her sister weeks earlier that she was scared, that she felt watched, trapped. Her marriage to Dale had eroded from tense to toxic. There were financial disputes, silent treatments, rumors of infidelity, and threats she couldn't quite prove. She had considered divorce but worried about what it would mean for the family business and her children. On April 24th, the night before she vanished, she met with an accountant. The meeting was tense. She wanted to separate her finances from Dale's. That was the last verifiable meeting she ever had. The days following Dee's disappearance were filled with confusion and growing dread. Her family reported her missing almost immediately. Her daughter and siblings began searching the fields. Flyers went up. Posts flooded Facebook. Dale's behavior, meanwhile, grew increasingly strange. He refused to let anyone search parts of the property. He claimed Dee had left voluntarily, even as her phone pinged one final time, on the property itself. When police asked for access to all surveillance footage, Dale said the cameras had malfunctioned. Neighbors noticed he seemed agitated, pacing around the barn in the early mornings, staring out into the open plains. Others remembered hearing loud machinery humming from behind the barn the morning after Dee vanished. Still, with no body and no obvious sign of a crime, police were limited in what they could do. No arrest, no press conference, no resolution. Just silence. The days turned to weeks, the weeks to months, and the questions only deepened. Why was Dale's story so inconsistent? Why was he already talking about divorce settlements and business ownership? Why was he selling off equipment so soon after her disappearance? Then came the interviews. A private investigator, Billy Little, reached out to Dale under the pretense of trying to help. In a recorded conversation, Dale talked at length about Dee's emotional volatility, how she was a difficult person, how she probably took off. But it was what Dale didn't say that raised red flags. He never expressed fear, or sadness, or uncertainty, just finality, as if he already knew she wouldn't be coming back. By mid-2022, it was clear the investigation was stalling. So Dee's family took matters into their own hands. They organized search parties, brought in cadaver dogs, filed FOIA requests for police documents, and perhaps most powerfully, they built a digital movement. Hashtag Justice for Dee wasn't just a hashtag, it was a mission. The group set up a timeline of her final days, mapped out every section of the farm, and even contacted chemists to understand how fertilizer tanks could preserve a body. Then came the tank, a towering steel cylinder sitting behind one of Dale's barns. It was industrial, heavy, and seemingly out of use. But it had a fresh padlock. No one had opened it. Not police, not search teams, not even Dale, who now avoided it completely. The private investigator was baffled. Why had this tank, within eyesight of the house, been overlooked? He reported his concerns to law enforcement, twice. Nothing happened. Until someone on TikTok, with over 500,000 followers, posted a video highlighting the tank as the most likely hiding spot for Dee's body. The video went viral overnight, and public outrage exploded. By 2023, Dee's case was gaining national traction. News stations aired segments, podcasts picked up the story. True crime YouTubers began analyzing Dale's interviews frame by frame. This wasn't just a missing persons case anymore. It was a symbol of what happens when law enforcement fails to act. Finally, the Michigan State Police reopened the case. A new task force was assembled. This time, no stone would be left unturned. They brought in sonar equipment, excavators, and chemical experts. They scanned ponds, dug up flower beds, tested burn piles, and then they came back to the tank. On August 16, 2024, a forensic hazmat team arrived with cutting tools. They sliced into the steel tank, careful not to ignite any remaining chemical residue. The smell hit first, then a plastic-wrapped bundle. Within minutes, they knew what they had found. Remains, human, preserved by chemical exposure. Hair, fabric, bone. Dee Ann Warner. Dale Warner was arrested at a local diner just hours later. He didn't resist. He didn't even ask why. When charged with open murder, his only response was, "That's not possible." The prosecution laid out their theory. The fight on April 24th escalated. Dale snapped. Dee died. Instead of calling for help, he loaded her into farm equipment and sealed her inside the ammonia tank. To the public, it was unthinkable. To Dee's family, it was confirmation. The man who had cried beside them, who had attended prayer circles, who had played the grieving husband on local news, had always known where she was. Just behind the barn. Dee's children buried her in late September 2024. The service was intimate, held at a local church with white flowers lining the pews. Speakers shared memories, her laugh, her strength, her generosity. Her daughter read a poem she had written when Dee first went missing. Outside, hundreds stood in silent solidarity. Some held candles. Others held signs. Justice for Dee. She didn't leave. She was taken. Dale's preliminary hearing is scheduled for early 2025. The prosecution has over 80 pieces of evidence, including the padlock, chemical residue matching Dale's purchase history, and his digital footprint around the time of her disappearance. Legal experts believe it's a strong case, but Dee's family says the real trial is already over. "We knew the truth," her sister said. "We just needed the world to see it." This wasn't just a disappearance. It was a failure. A failure to act, a failure to listen, a failure to follow the most basic clues. A woman feared for her life. She warned her family. She left signs. She begged for change. And yet, the one person who had the most to gain from her silence walked free for 3 years. If her children hadn't pushed, if her sister hadn't shouted, if strangers on social media hadn't cared, Would that tank still be sealed? Would Dee's body still be hidden? Justice, when delayed, becomes a burden. But when it comes, it can be a relief, a release. Now it's your turn. Was justice too late or just in time? Let us know in the comments.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe for more gripping true crime breakdowns, mysteries, and criminal psychology stories, only on Twisted Case.